When compared to the Xbox One and Wii U, it was clear that the PlayStation 4 had the strongest library of its generation. Although the console was released in 2013, it is still supported more than a decade later and has a library of games that grows with the next generation. And with so many exclusive and multi-platform games on the console, I couldn't make a video with the best PS4 games of all time, so let's move on to the first game in the video. Bloodborne will probably long have a spot on this list. Keep reading, but developer From Software changed course from its familiar Dark Souls-esque approach for Sekiro. Shadows die twice, and the results are deeply compelling. Like Soulsborne games, Sekiro is immensely challenging and demands precise play, but getting the job done here is much different as you're a shinobi. You'll have to balance both posture and vitality in combat and utilize tactics such as stealth to win out and survive for another battle. And yes indeed, you'll surely die more than twice, but it's worth it. While Nathan Drake established himself as a compelling lead over the course of the 4 core Uncharted games, 2017's Uncharted: The Lost Legacy proved that the same was true for Drake's supporting cast. Lost Legacy moved the spotlight to the unexpected duo of treasure hunter Chloe Fraser and mercenary Nadine Ross, and discovered there's a verve and chemistry in the cast even without Nate. Not only does Lost Legacy open the door for any number of spin-offs that focus on other characters in the Uncharted game timeline, it features some of the best gameplay sequences the series has to offer. Originally released in 2005, Shadow of the Colossus might easily be considered one of the best games ever made for its solemn world and tragic depictions of the madness of grief. The remaster from Bluepoint Games captures that same sense of scale and awe in its opening moments, and each of the encounters with the eponymous colossi are truly breathtaking experiences. While Elden Ring might not be easy to love if you're unfamiliar with From Software's uncompromising approach to gameplay, those who enter the vast open world of the Lands Between will be rewarded with one of the most richly realized environments ever committed to pixels. Created in collaboration with Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin, Elden Ring is packed with breathtaking scenery, majestic locations to explore, and the kind of enemies that'll stomp you in seconds if you're not careful, but you can always go away and come back for another go when you're more tooled up. A punishing, if sometimes overwhelming, masterpiece. For many, the PS4 era's most experimental period was found while trying to collect all the Nier Automata trophies. What genre is it? Well, we think it's a JRPG, but it's also a hack-and-slash-action game. You see, it's also a bit of a platformer, text adventure, and shoot 'em up too. But don't worry about it, director Yoko Taro certainly doesn't care what genre is what, he just cares about fun. Indeed, this is a stunningly well-designed game with fun at its core. It also has a fantastic story that requires multiple playthroughs to understand. It's a unique entry for our best PS4 games list, but Nier Automata deserves its plaudits, exactly why you voted this game in, we suppose. The Monster Hunter series had a strong reputation since its inception, but it never managed to fully break into the mainstream with its more inaccessible gameplay formula. However, that changed with Monster Hunter World adding slight simplifications to make it a great entry point for potential fans. The environments and massive beasts in Monster Hunter World still look stunning on the PS4, and if you are looking for one of the most visually impressive games on the system, then World is a great choice. Amid the rise of the Battle Royale genre, Apex Legends manages to stand out, even as a later addition to the fray. Set in the universe of Respawn's Titanfall series, Apex utilizes similar gameplay mechanics which give it a unique edge over other Battle Royale games. In addition to its faster pace, Apex incorporates the use of specific legends who all have different skills and abilities that create the need for teams to work together and synergize between the different characters. Similar to how Overwatch operates, the roster of different heroes allows players to constantly change their playstyles in order to secure the win. With constant updates and new limited-time game modes being switched in and out, Apex Legends is a high-octane game that constantly leaves you wanting to go for just one more match. You must note, dear reader, that despite our runs through the Bloodborne trophies, the namesake of the Soulsborne genre did not appear on any of our individual best lists. Fear not, we know its true place is still here. The truth, for myself at least, is that despite frequent attempts, I have perpetually failed to find my footing with Bloodborne. After finishing Dark Souls Remastered, I revisited the game hoping it would finally click for me, but for whatever reason, I simply cannot get into the spirit of the game's more aggressive combat mechanics. However, I've seen plenty of others play the game well. I've seen the joy it elicits when the combat does work and how deep and rewarding the twists and turns of the game's world can be. Despite failing to conquer Bloodborne, I still come crawling back every time because I know I could love it if my brain and my thumbs would only keep up with my heart. I just can't let my thumbs be the reason Bloodborne doesn't make it on the best PS4 games list. Yakuza 0 is the high bar for Sega's long-running open-world series, packed with an extraordinary amount of things to do and centered around a genuinely compelling crime story. Since it's a prequel, it's also unburdened by the series' increasingly intricate backstory and thus supremely approachable for newcomers. While its melee combat may lag slightly behind modern genre standards, Yakuza 0 still hits far more than it misses and is a big, bold, and bruising tour through the Japanese underworld. Ubisoft's open-world adventure series keeps firing on all cylinders with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which explores a new locale and era by tapping into the Viking invasion of England. You'll start in snowy Norway before the game opens up a bit, savoring the likable lead Eivor and the dreamy terrain, but it ultimately feels vast and enormous, a quest that you can easily pour dozens of hours into. And you really should. The critics got Days Gone wrong. Meanwhile, the True Trophies community rates it incredibly highly, making it the third entry in our community pick section. So, why is this the case? Well, our lead Deccan St. John is perhaps not the most friendly bloke in the remaining zombie-freaker-infested Oregon world. That and the biker aesthetic probably put a few off, but for most, it becomes steadily more endearing as the game roars on. The open-world fatigue had probably set in at the end of the PS4's lifespan, too. With its wildernesses, mountain ranges, and deserts, Oregon is a breeze of fresh air amongst the same old end times worlds we have seen before. It just came at the wrong time with first-party games Horizon and Ghost of Tsushima to fight against. What no one can disagree with is that PlayStation's Bend Studio really loved the game they made, and that shines through. The central narrative about Deccan's journey in the apocalypse is sometimes overwrought and cliché, but it's utterly endearing. After a long wait, the 2020 remake of Final Fantasy VII revitalizes one of the most beloved JRPGs of all time in a, mostly, successful and engaging way. This new version of Midgard probably isn't just how your brain remembers it looking, it's much better, with a stunning, detailed, and immersive exploration of the steampunk city. It's a great way to dive into the Final Fantasy series. Since Part 1 of Remake, subsequent releases will cover the rest of the original story, takes place entirely within Midgard, Square Enix is able to really spend time with the city's ensemble cast, giving them more nuance and screen time to round out the adventure. And that's on top of its stellar combat system, a marriage of real-time and more tactical, turn-based systems to create something that's wholly unique and a joy to master. Part 2 can't come soon enough. Outer Wilds is going to be hard to justify to some, but those who know. This is one of the greatest games of all time and a pinnacle of game design. You are an astronaut in a solar system with a dying sun. With every 20 minutes comes another time reset, waking you up over and over to an alien ship exploding above you. From there, it's down to you to solve what is going on, putting together stands of disparate puzzles until they form a greater whole. That's it. Why have AAA graphics or a massive open world when all you need is top-tier environmental design, storytelling, and simple but effective puzzle mechanics? To even describe Outer Wilds components individually is an insult to it. It works as harmony, swelling, and softening with the realization that you are solving something with concepts that should be way above you. I know it's above Spider-Man and Uncharted, and I know that is weird, but you are just going to have to trust me here. Every time you see a new planet, it's like hearing the floaty joy of a flute. Every time the actual Outer Wilds score swells, it is like closing your eyes to your favorite song. Even the Outer Wilds trophies offer a well-thought-out voyage. This game is sensational and makes for the perfect indie inclusion on our list of the best PS4 games. A game about a married couple trying to navigate through a divorce as anthropomorphic dolls doesn't sound like a good time. It sounds like a great time. Players must work together as either Cody or May to navigate through a series of different mechanics that tie into the themes of their marriage woes. In one instance, players will be changing the flow of time or cloning themselves before finding themselves navigating a boat down dangerous rapids. The amount of different genres it takes to throws at you is as expansive as the story is endearing. Just don't get attached to the elephant. Overwatch is a brilliant multiplayer shooter brimming with Blizzard's charm and detail, and it's one that Blizzard has impressively continued to support with new heroes and updates since its launch in 2016. Overwatch earned Game of the Year from IGN in its launch year, sweeping the IGN offices with multiplayer matches after work and at lunches, and sometimes during the workday, that have continued in the months and years since. Blizzard's rock-solid gameplay allows players in whatever role they play on a team to matter, and Blizzard's impressive attention to detail has created a rich world of lore that permeates the experience, allowing those who just want a fun multiplayer experience to enjoy the action but offering those who want something more a wealth of character and location information to delve into. Collecting all the Devil May Cry 5 trophies would be nothing short of a miracle. Despite Devil May Cry 4's broadly positive critical and commercial performance, the next entry in the series, DMC Devil May Cry, would be a full-scale reboot courtesy of Ninja Theory. While the game was certainly no disaster, it felt like an unnecessary course correction for a series that seemed to keep getting better with each subsequent entry, if you discount DMC 2. Of course, for Devil May Cry 5 to come out 11 years removed from the previous numbered entry and not only retain the quality of DMC 4, but to make substantial refinements and improvements to the series formula is like some kind of divine intervention. DMC 5 finally shakes free from the constraints of the old Resident Evil prototype DNA in its bones, bidding farewell to backtrack and puzzle labyrinths at long last. The results put action front and center to create a tremendous new high for the series. The iconic PlayStation franchise Ratchet & Clank only got better on PS4 with a beautiful, funny update of the duo's first adventure. More a remix of the original PS2 game than a straight remaster, there is a gorgeous level of detail to the Lombax and Robots adventure, which also makes some noted story improvements. The titular duo's initial meeting and budding friendship feels more fully formed and smartly written, while the series' signature humor is in full force throughout. Veldin, Rilger, and other worlds are beautiful, Pixar-like environments with plenty to explore, and modernizations made to the gameplay make the adventure as fresh as ever. And of course, Insomniac's signature knack for wacky weapons is on full display in HD, from Mr. Zirkin to the Groovitron. Insomniac has obviously put its recent focus on VR and Spider-Man, but this latest iteration proves Ratchet & Clank has plenty of life left in it. If at first you don't succeed, die again. That's the mantra of Supergiant Games' critically acclaimed roguelike Hades. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades who wants nothing more than to escape his father's realm. With assistance from the gods of Olympus, players navigate through the ever-changing halls of the underworld as they journey to the world's surface. If Zagreus fails in his attempts, he is sent back to the start and must make his escape again. The game's excellent writing, gameplay loops and soundtrack all amalgamate into a beautifully realized depiction of Greek mythology and its denizens with modern sensibilities. It's a masterpiece. One of the most widely acclaimed indie games in recent memory, Dead Cells puts you in the shoes of a headless corpse brought back to life in a dungeon. Your task, then, is to fight your way out. But that's hardly a simple request. Dead Cells is a no-holds-barred roguelike side-scroller, which means when you die it's right back to the start for you. Luckily, it's not completely merciless, as weapon and character upgrades persist across attempts, helping you push further and further with each new try. The Dark Souls-inspired combat is brutal and satisfying, and the 2D Metroid/Castlevania-esque approach is done spectacularly here. Upon launch, Death Stranding was definitely a divisive game, with one of the issues people had with it being not knowing what it is. But when you actually sit down and play it, all the pieces fit together to create an unmatched and unforgettable gaming experience. The detailed exploration of Death Stranding's open world, paired with the engaging delivery system, makes Death Stranding a game that's hard to compare to anything else. If you feel like all the games you are playing are merging together, try Death Stranding to get something completely new. One of the most heart-wrenching and visually dynamic adventure games of the generation, What Remains of Edith Finch is a must-play. While a game about recounting the death of each of Edith's family members by exploring their bedrooms, turned memorial shrines, may sound like a bummer, the creative ways each memory gets explored keeps you entertained, while the mystery of how this person died creates eerie suspense that will entice you to keep going. Each remembrance transports you to their stories and subsequent deaths, with moments ranging from playing on swing sets to, quite literally, bouncing between comic book panels. Striking, stylish, and hauntingly beautiful, What Remains of Edith Finch is one of the best experiences to be had on PS4. While Resident Evil Village is the most recent entry into the long-standing horror series, Resident Evil 7 definitely leans more heavily into its survival elements and is arguably better for it. There's no 10-foot vampires or goofy fish people here, just a ramshackle old house in the middle of a swamp and nowhere else to run. The early portion of the game leaves hero Ethan Winters with little to no defense against the Baker family in a true house of horrors that is genuinely quite terrifying. The PS4 version of the game also has support for the PSVR headset, which is, without question, the scariest way to experience this Capcom classic. Our expectations for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 were relatively modest, being a gussied-up repackaging of a couple of 20-year-old gems. But this Hawk revival hits different than past efforts to revive the legendary skateboarding series, with the easy-to-grasp gameplay still shining after all these years and the completely overhauled graphics giving the bundle a thankfully modern touch. Grabbing Tekken 7 trophies from Bandai Namco gets your adrenaline pumping every time you pummel away at your foes in this high-octane fighting game. Successfully chaining together the most intricate combos you can to keep your opponents juggled in the air for maximum damage is a feeling of pure bliss when you manage to pull it off. Then you have the absolute beast of a soundtrack that works in getting you fired up more and more as the rounds progress. It is a sensation like no other.
Purchase your tracks today.
Uncharted 4 is Uncharted all grown up, an examination of what happens when Nathan Drake's Indiana Jones-style antics come face to face with his adult responsibilities. It manages to reckon with this and then some, juggling delicate relationship dynamics with ridiculously fun action sequences and breathtaking vistas ripe for exploring and pillaging. Though it gets a little bogged down by an overly long final act, Uncharted 4 is still one of the best action-adventure games of all time, and one of the best PlayStation 4 games ever. JRPGs can be a hard genre to get into, which is why Dragon Quest XI is so impressive for how accessible and enjoyable it is for all players. The game's world design hasn't aged a day since it launched, and building your party of lovable characters to complete the tale told is a well-paced and polished experience. While the definitive edition of the game was not officially launched on the PS4, it is still available digitally, and at an accessible price too. The definitive edition of Dragon Quest XI available on PlayStation 4 refines the game to a level unmatched by any similar games, and makes it a beacon within the Dragon Quest series. Metal Gear Solid 5. The Phantom Pain is without question the most ambitious entry in the Metal Gear series. So ambitious, in fact, that it's something of an unfinished masterpiece. While a lot of hardcore fans of the series were disappointed by the game's scattered story, it's hard to deny that the moment-to-moment gameplay is absolutely phenomenal. On top of rock-solid movement and a huge, sometimes literal, sandbox to explore, the Phantom Pain gives players a huge arsenal of weapons, vehicles, gadgets, and AI companions to approach missions creatively. As always, stealthy tactical gameplay is rewarded heavily, but if a mission goes sideways, or if you're feeling squirrely, the game doesn't punish you too hard for getting loud and messy. Even if you've never played another Metal Gear game, this is a hell of an experience. If the plot leaves you with a big question mark over your head, don't feel left out. That's part of the fun. The most recent entry into the Gran Turismo series is a celebration of the game's 25-year history with hundreds of cars to choose from over some of the most iconic locations featured in the series. In our review of the game, we said, Gran Turismo 7 is a vast racing game. It might lack the instant sparkle of an arcade racing game, but it's an experience that lasts much longer and feels more rewarding. When Fall Guys trophies landed on PS4 via PS Plus during the summer of 2020, it was like being woken from a long, drab nightmare. At first, we were disoriented, the colors, the music, and the somewhat alarming bean people. Then the haze lifted, and we remembered, oh, that's right, video games can be anything. Video games don't have to have guns, swords, plots, or even coherent worlds to be enjoyed. They can be as simple and as beautiful as a bunch of bean people corralled into inflatable balloon arenas and forced to race one another for coveted gold crowns. Fall Guys is a precious reminder that the creative potential of video games remains still untapped, and we have the PS4 to thank for really making the impact of that message felt in the world. Resident Evil fans were begging for a remake of the much-beloved Resident Evil 2 for over 2 decades. After the original 1 Rupee received its stellar GameCube remake all the way back in 2002, fans waited and waited and waited. When it eventually came, it was everything they dreamed of and more. The Resident Evil 7's RE engine was reworked into a third-person tour de force, showcasing intensely realistic gore with blood dripping from mangled zombies. Mr. X returned as a force to be reckoned with, its shooting mechanics were pitch-perfect, and terror was palpable throughout. Listen, we know that there are more appealing AAA games that we could put on our best PS4 games list. Sit back and be done without any trouble. Our next pick, Kingdom Come Deliverance, is instead a messy, trial-filled RPG set in medieval Bohemia, a game where you have to teach idiotic protagonist Henry to read, to speak, to pick locks, and to fight if you want to get anywhere. It's not a perfect game by any means. It can be glitchy, some systems are shallow, and the map is a bit blank, but it is full of personality and character, executing a new form of historical sim so well and so endearingly well we can't not put it on this list. The story is fantastic and its survival systems are innovative because they immerse you in the world of one-time European powerhouse Bohemia under threat by invaders. The fact Henry comes from nothing and has no skills is narratively refreshing but also makes the gameplay so much more rewarding when you actively learn how to shoot a bow without accidentally executing a passing peasant. Collecting those Kingdom Come Deliverance trophies is no easy feat either, but you'll see every detail, nook, and cranny of the wonderful world Warhorse have put together. Sucker Punch's latest adventure is dense with moving stories and striking visuals that make exploring its expansive take on 13th century Japan a joy. Its cast, across the English and Japanese languages, does an excellent job bringing Ghost's complex tale of honor and loss to life, both in its 30-plus hour main campaign and all the side quests that eloquently mirror thematic aspects of your main journey. While the stealth may be simple, and enemy AI less than stellar, combat is spectacular, a simple but nuanced exploration of Japanese swordplay that is still fun right up to your very last duel. Add all of this on top of one of the best, and most addictive, photo modes we've seen, and Ghost of Tsushima more than makes up for its late addition to the PS4's library by being one of its best games. Sucker Punch's next project is another open-world game with stealth and action elements, perhaps Ghost of Tsushima 2. What has been confirmed is a Ghost of Tsushima movie. Directed by Chad Stahelski, John Wick, the movie will be a retelling of the game's story. Arguably one of the best-looking and most immersive games you can play on the PS4 is the sequel to Red Dead Redemption. Rockstar took the time needed after the success of the original to make a well-crafted and stunning fight. The setting of Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most detailed with plenty to do and see throughout your adventure, which will take plenty of time to complete, so make sure you have time to dedicate to it. An exceptional third-person shooter with a trippy supernatural twist, Control is not only our game of the year for 2019 but stands out as one of the most unique adventures of the generation. The seasoned team at Remedy Entertainment brought their years of experience to bear on one of the coolest ability/weapon sets in recent memory, which made for some of the most satisfying and frenetic telekinetic combat ever put to pixels. On top of its excellent superpowered gunplay, Control features some truly inspired environmental design, its oldest house a shape-shifting labyrinth like something from a fever dream shared by Stanley Kubrick and David Lynch. Throughout its monster-filled halls, you'll undertake memorable side quests, hunt for upgrades to your abilities and gear, and hunt down a litany of collectibles that all help flesh out the eerie bureaucracy that's at the center of Control's impossibly unique experience. If you asked us a year ago, we never could have imagined truly loving a Dragon Ball Z game. There have been a couple of solid ones over the years, but most have been passable or much worse. But Dragon Ball FighterZ is legitimately awesome, even if you're not a superfan. FighterZ adapts the legendary anime series with incredible precision, with pitch-perfect graphic recreations of characters and key moments. But the biggest draw is just how much fun and accessible the fighting is. It hails from Arc System Works, the team behind some super hardcore genre entries, but FighterZ never feels overcomplicated. It's a thing of beauty, spiky-haired, bulging muscles beauty. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.